This is the Post Shift Podcast, a raw look at the hospitality industry. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, Post Shift podcasters, and welcome to another episode of the Post Shift Podcast. I'm obviously your host, Shawn Soole. Today we have a very, very special episode for you. I really enjoyed this one. This is episode number 35 and the Toronto Cocktail Conference series number 6 with the very lovely born and bred BC girl made good, Kelsey Ramage, who is one half of the Trash Tiki team with her partner, Ian. And it was sort of flabbergasting to listen to her story and how she became the Trash Tiki, the sustainability sort of icon in the industry right now. And just listening to her story, and I think by now, we're a little bit ahead of time. Their new bar and restaurant in Toronto should have opened by now. So congratulations, Kelsey, if you're listening. But just listen to her story, and kids, young bartenders that are out there listening, really take heed of some of the things that she said, because I truly believe that the method behind the madness of what she did when she left Canada was some of the most profound and inspired thoughts I've ever heard from a bartender of our sort of age. And so I think enjoy the episode. I think it was a fantastic episode. I really enjoyed this one. I really wanted to sit down with Ian as well, but the man was insanely busy at the time during Toronto Cocktail Conference. Toronto Cocktail Conference was a great show, and if you're a Canadian bartender and you have not gone to Toronto Cocktail Conferences yet, you really, really need to. So I hope you enjoy this episode, guys. Have a good week. Bye.
It's hard once you're traveling, like trying to fit in, staying up to date on your next 5 projects is impossible.
So I'm going to introduce you in the intro, so we won't do that as usual. Actually, no, you should introduce yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, introduce yourself. Let's start with that. That's always nice and easy.
So my name is Kelsey Ramage. I am a bartender. A lot of people know me from Trash Tiki, which I started about 3 years ago with my partner Ian Griffiths started in London, did a couple of pop-ups, and it was meant to just be like a online resource for bartenders. And it ended up being like a pop-up series and this like whole global thing that kind of exploded from there. So we took it on tour for 9 months, and now we're landed back in Toronto, and we're about to open our very first bar.
Really?
Yeah.
Sweet. I always like to know when I haven't done any research on the people I'm talking to, and they give me surprises that I'm actually surprised about.
Yeah. So I actually only found out yesterday. We get possession on Thursday.
Amazing.
Yeah, so that's just in a couple of days.
And where are you from originally?
Just outside of Vancouver.
You're a BC girl.
Yeah.
Born and bred.
Yeah, same hometown as TK. Salmon Arm.
Oh.
Yeah.
Salmon Arm. I got told by someone, I think it's the Hendrix brand ambassador, that there's a wicked cocktail culture in Salmon Arm. That there's like surprisingly good cocktails to get in Salmon Arm. Is this true or wrong?
I think that's false.
Okay. Well, I'm really glad, because I kept reaching out to him on Facebook, because I'm like, it was a drunken TOCC party. I was talking about my next book and all about BC, all about Canadian bartending. He's like, you've got to do Salmon Arm, man. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, and so I reached out to him. I was like, which bars, like which bartenders, like who should I be talking to? And he never responded. And I'm like, okay, so it was probably just a drunken crossover somewhere along the line.
There's been a couple of people that have come out of Salmon Arm, like myself and TK, and there's Jerry Job.
Jerry Job?
Yeah, he's from Salmon Arm as well. That have come out of Salmon Arm. But last time I was back, the only bar that was open there closed at 9 p.m. So.
Oh. So yeah, cocktail culture's alive and well. Yeah. So how did you get into, how long have you been bartending for?
I've probably been bartending since I was 20, so 14 wow. years.
And always in Vancouver?
I started in Toronto.
Oh wow.
Yeah, in a nightclub here.
As always.
Yeah.
Everybody does. It's either I'm a dishwasher or as a bar back at a nightclub.
Yeah. Yeah, started before that though, I was a dishwasher at my dad's restaurant in northern Alberta.
Okay, so you're historically, generationally industry.
Yeah.
So you know exactly what it takes.
Yeah.
So what made you make the move to Vancouver? What year was that?
I think that was in That was probably like 2010,
Around Olympics
2009.
time?
Yeah.
Were you always into cocktail bars?
No, when I moved there, I was like, I wanted to get back into cocktails, but I was also like, I'm going to keep going in the fashion industry because that's why I came out to Toronto. So I started working at like Steamworks, pouring pints and working at this other nightclub and whatever. And then I started working for the Global Group, and that's where I kind of like started, paying attention to numbers and making cocktails and, doing that. That's where that all started.
And when did you move to London?
That was 2014.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so cause the thing is, like, you started Salmon Arm.
Yeah.
You moved to Toronto for fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Do a little bit of cocktail here.
Yeah.
Go back to Vancouver.
Yeah.
Get in the cocktails there.
Yeah.
And then, like, 4 years later, move all the way to London.
Yeah. So so once I started getting into the cocktail industry, I started working at the Oakwood in Vancouver, and I that was the first time I had my own program, and I kind of worked my way up. I got my wine certification, and I started, getting more into the wine world, and then I became the GM at the Oakwood, and I was like getting into restaurant management, and one of my mentors there, Jeff Parr, he really showed me what it meant to be a restaurant manager when he went to go open Annalena, and I was feeling creatively stuck. I was doing the bar program at the same time as I was mentoring some people on the bar, and at the same time of running a restaurant, and I was feeling creatively tapped. I was feeling a little bit run down. I was probably drinking way too much, and I was like, okay, it's time to get up. I need to get the fuck out. I need to learn from the best. I need to see how this is properly meant to be done, and I need to find myself proper mentorship.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which is still pretty ballsy, even to actually have the awareness to stop and look at yourself and go, yeah, this is not working for me anymore.
Yeah.
I need to figure this out, but I want to stay in it, but what do I do? But London's a big leap.
Yeah.
You can think, oh, well, I can just go back to Toronto, or London's just a pack up your bags and fuck it, I'm gone.
Yeah. I think at the time in 2014 it was London that was getting a lot of the attention, a lot of the awards, and White Lion had just opened up, and they were doing stuff that nobody else was doing, and it was either there, it was one of the big major cocktail cities is where I wanted to go, and it wasn't necessarily a lifestyle choice. It was no, I need to do this for my career. So it was that or New York, and I was like, New York's doing some cool stuff, but essentially they're doing classic, more classically driven stuff, and I was like, no, okay, London is, it seems like where it's at. So when I went, I staged at a whole plethora of different places.
Did you have a plan when you decided to move, or did you have people that you could you were going to hook up with, or you literally just went?
Yeah, I got on a plane. I didn't know a fucking soul.
Really?
Yeah.
That is mental.
Yeah, just kind of landed and figured it out.
Wow. And where were the highlights that you staged at?
Probably wouldn't say it's a highlight anymore.
Oh, okay. You don't need to mention it. Never mind.
Yeah. We'll just leave that one under the rug. But I where else did I stage? At Opium. I did Happiness Forgets, which was a very high contender on the list. I still have a very good relationship with Ali, and I love those guys.
The menu's always epic.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And I loved the bar when I went in. And then I did a little shift at White Lion, and I did a shift at Dandelion. And Dandelion just seemed, it was no, this is where I need to be.
So kids out there, if you're having any questions about your bartenders and about your bartending and what you want to do, you should just pack up everything and move to London without a care in the world, and you'll fall on your feet.
Yeah. You'll spend a lot of money in the process, but...
but even still, I'm shocked just purely because I'm almost anxious about not having a plan, but just moving and then going, okay, well, I'm just going to drop resumes off and stage as much as I can and just get my foot in the door. And also landing in White Lion, of all bars. I think, I can't remember, it was a friend of yours, a mutual friend of ours, he was working at the Commons, or whatever it's called now, in Victoria.
Yeah.
And I think Cam Brown was in town, and he was sitting at the bar, and he's like, oh yeah, and I'd known briefly, like, on the radar from Vancouver, and I think a couple of competitions we crossed paths or something like that.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh yeah, Kelsey's working at White Lion in London. And I'm like, what? And Cam's like, yeah, she, like, just moved and got a job. I'm like, what? And we had a good conversation, and I was always just blown away with, like, because it's always one of those things, like, 6 degrees separation. Like, you know someone that's now working at, like, one of the best bars in the world.
Yeah.
It's like someone you know going to work at Noma. And,
Yeah.
You're like, oh, that's good for you. You're just FOMOing a little bit right now.
I think that, like, there's also a really big problem within our industry, and I'm sure you've experienced it in the bars that you've been running, is that we've got a global skills shortage.
Mm-hmm. And,
you know, people are getting put into these positions that maybe they're not qualified for and they don't have the mentorship for. And it is good to be able to move anywhere right now and find these major bars that have people in place that are able to train you.
Mm-hmm.
And they're looking for
People
staff.
that are hungry.
All they want is, like, you can train technique, you can
Mm-hmm.
train, you know, all of this, but you can't train fucking attitude and
Mm-hmm.
personality.
Some humility.
Yeah, just go in with an open mind. You'll probably be just fine.
Yeah, I just had my lead bartender in Singapore quit on me this morning, so
Fuck.
yeah, I had a great morning for that one.
Oh no.
And pretty much the same reason. He's been there 6 weeks, and he's like, I just can't see advancement. I'm like, dude, I'm back in 5 days. We're going to talk about it.
Yeah. Oh man. Sorry.
So you started working at White Lion, which just blows me away. Even for me at my age and whatever I experience, I'd still freaking drop. Like, I'd leave my family to go work at White Lion.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean that, honey, at all. I wouldn't do that. How long were you at White Lion?
Dandelion, was that?
Dandelion, sorry, yes.
I was there for just about 2 years. I think about a year and a half. My work visa was about 2
Mm-hmm.
years. So started in a pretty junior bartending position and then kind of, like, worked my way up. I had a couple of mentors that were the two head bartenders at the time, Mikey Ball and Alex Lawrence, and they just, like, taught me everything. Had a lot of drinks dumped down the sink.
Just like, no, try again.
Yeah, it was ruthless. The way that bar is set up is that, so there's 0, which is like a garnish station, and then there's 1 and 2, and they do the service for the entire floor, which is about, 600, 700 drinks a night, and then the last 2, 3 and 4 do the service for the 18 seats on the bar. So it's a very good, like, way to work your way up the ranks, and you always have somebody over your shoulder checking your drinks.
Wow.
Yeah.
What do you think you got most out of that? Like, it just sounds like you were ridiculously humble to start with, to, like, forget about everything you already knew.
You have to,
and learn, like, everything you know before you walk into a place like that is wrong. Like, or not the way we do it.
Yeah, I think that there was, like, there's definitely that. They have such a good, so there's, I think this is a North American thing that, like, everyone has their own specs, and they think that, their daiquiri version is their best daiquiri, and you walk into Dandelion and you know the Dandelion specs.
Yeah.
So if you know that you can order a daiquiri off of any one of the bartenders, it's going to be fucking the same, which is how it should be.
100%.
So yeah, it was that, and then there was, like, a certain level of muscle memory that just comes from knowing where exactly the bottles are. And my first 2 shifts on Station 1, I was slow as shit, and you just have to work that muscle memory until you can double jigger, until you're using their equipment in the same way. I know that every bartender has equipment that they're comfortable with, but, like, getting to know where everything is and where that equipment is and how you can produce a round that's being produced in the right, in respect to, like, round building and what should come out first and what should come out last. That's where I learned all of that. It doesn't matter how fast I thought I was before.
Yeah, house spec really bugs the crap out of me. I have to deal with that a lot with a lot of bars. Like, I don't care. Like, I always run by a rule that there's no right way to make a cocktail. There's just plenty of wrong ways.
Yeah.
And so then I always have a voting system. So all the bartenders sit down. Everybody makes their version of the daiquiri. Everybody votes, which is the best one.
Yeah.
House
I like
spec.
that way to do it.
And it's very democratic, and everybody feels like they have ownership, and then everybody's got accountability. And if I see it wrong, then we're going to have a chat.
Yeah.
So after Dandelion, where'd you go? Did you come back home?
No. So we started Trash Tiki and when I went over to do the Altos tequila competition. And I came home and we did our first little pop up, which was a nightmare, and the drinks sucked and whatever. But then we got, for some reason, somebody saw the pop up and was like, "Hey, this is a cool idea. You want to come down to?" And it was a friend of Ian's that lives in LA, and he was like, "Do you want to come down to Harvard and Stone and do it here?" So we were like, "Yeah, of course, man." And then it just started catching on, and people were called us for a couple of articles, and by end of January, we were lining up so many pop-ups that I had to be like, "Hey, I can no longer be a senior bartender here."
So what started the Trash Tiki thing? How did the concept of Trash Tiki sort of start for you and Ian?
We were drunk, which is how most of our ideas come about.
But this one you remembered after you woke up.
Oh yeah, so you gotta write down your ideas. Half of them are shit, but some of them are actually really good. We were sitting at the Sun Tavern, which was our favorite place, and we were just discussing what had happened over the course of the weekend and different ways that we were so in a hotel environment, when you're trying to implement a recipe, it was always about looking at what we already had in house, obviously, because it just kept trying to keep costs down. But we were also looking at different flavor compounds and the smell that was coming out of the juicing room. When we were done, and we were like, well, if it smells that amazing, why isn't that being translated to the juice? You don't get that in a cocktail. You don't get that wonderful smell out of juice. So what are some of the recipes? What can we look at producing things entirely from waste? And then we're like, oh, well, maybe we'll do a pop-up that just looks entirely at food waste. And in April, we got, it was in November, it was about the same time, we got approached by Dan Barber to do the Wasted pop-up in London, and that was on the rooftop of Selfridges, and he just wanted a couple of bartenders from, the Lion Group to come and put together the drinks program for that. And we were super keen, and we were looking at kind of different waste systems in London at the time and trying to get where we were going to get ingredients. We served 6,500 people in a 4-week period.
You need a lot of lime skin for that.
Yeah, you need to figure out where those systems are coming from. So after having a look at that and having not being able to order anything off of anybody and just having to look at what we had, we were like, well, we can do this. We can figure this out. We can look at different bars and what they're throwing out, and we can probably figure out how to make drinks from it. So that's where it kind of all came from.
Wow. You've had a very serendipitous...
Yeah, it's all kind of, I really got ideas and then it just happened.
I'm sure it's going to sound that way on the thing, but then it's no, actually I sacrificed a ton, I worked a lot, I didn't sleep very much, I had that stress for that pop-up. It sounds fantastic, and then it just all played out really nicely,
oh, yeah.
But I almost cried every night.
That was actually it. Yes, that's 100% what we were doing. You're when you're working 70 hours a week, when do you have time to balance your own drinks? Outside of balancing the bar's drinks. So that happened at between the hours of 3 and 5 in the morning. And then when you're on tour, it's we were doing 3-day pockets. So you'd fly in one day, you spec balance, batch, do the pop-up, and then fly out. And that was one after another. So that it breaks you after a while. So it kind of got to a point where I was like, okay, we need to tone this all down.
How many pop-ups did you do? How many pop-ups did you do in a 6-month period?
I think there were I think when we counted it ended up being 60 something.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's really intense.
Yeah.
60. Oh.
Yeah. We didn't have a house. We weren't paying rent.
Well, I suppose you land and then because it's all about using what is left, talking about those channels, land in a different city. You're okay, and you need X, Y, Z, and it's just well, we don't have enough of that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the other thing. And also doing it we did it at a ramen shop in Houston. And they made their stock off site. So we didn't have access to the stuff that we thought we had access to. So we ended up like reaching out to Anvil and reaching out to a couple of different places to get some of their waste, so we had more flavors to work with in the first place. But what that ended up doing, and this happened in Hong Kong as well, is that it created a community that started using it after we left.
Yeah, which is cool.
Which is rad.
And so when you were doing these pop-ups, especially, well, it's not so much in the US, but anyway, did you go in with a preconceived menu or of a roundabout idea?
Yeah.
And then when you land, you see what you've got, and then you develop, like, in that 2-day period?
Yeah. So we'd have an idea. We'd get the list off of the bar. We kind of look at it and be like, oh, we could probably do that flavor, that flavor, and then write out a rough, drinks list and spec sheet that was based off of that. And then we get in, we try and prep some of the ingredients. Some of them wouldn't work out. Some of them we get there and like they hadn't stored it properly or whatever. You have to be aware of stuff that they're saving over the course of the week and how that's safe. So that's a very big thing that we started talking about as well. Is be like, here is your sheet and how to store things. But yeah, that ended up being a bit of a challenge as well. And so we developed this drink sheet. Which we've just got one of our staff members to put into a spreadsheet. That was like, no, these are our classics. This is how we do, this is how we do tiki. So that's become like this whole huge valuable resource that we didn't even know we were sitting on.
Wow.
I didn't even know how many drinks we came up with in that time period, but there's a lot.
And how many people do you have working for you now?
One.
You've got a staff member.
Yeah, we had.
Awesome.
Yeah, Madison Homewood came on about a month ago. She's amazing.
Well, because Ian right now is doing a pop-up in New York.
Yeah. So that's with the line group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you're juggling two different, like, almost different concepts and different everything.
Yeah.
And that pop-up fit out looks amazing.
It's unreal. I went down to say hi and sat at the bar and I was like, this is weird, man.
Some of the money the hotels are throwing around and places like that are throwing around. Like, I'm good friends with the guys at Old Man in Singapore because I live upstairs from them, literally, and figuratively. And they did a pop-up in Bangkok, 3-month fit out, and the hotel built an Old Man.
Crazy.
From scratch.
That's nuts.
And I'm like, is it going to stay? And they're like, it looks like it's going to stay, but like we don't know. Like it could just rotate.
Weird.
But like pop-ups are different to like a full build-out like the one that I watched on Ian's Facebook page.
It's crazy.
Like that's a ton of money. That's like a...
That's MasterCard doing
yeah.
that. Yeah.
So, the new place.
Yeah.
Take possession on Thursday.
Yeah. It's going to be called Supernova Ballroom. We, again, had a few glasses of wine when we were in Italy and we're like, you know what, this would be a great name. But it's right in the center of the financial district.
Wow.
So, like, Bay and Adelaide. It is got this, like, beautiful old heritage wall, 2-story ceilings. Like, it's a really cool space, but it's also, like, very dated on one side. It's very 90s.
Yeah.
It used to be this, like, off-track betting place that had, like, $80 stakes and, like, big Cabernets and that kind of thing. So we're going pretty 70s with the artwork and with like the colors palette and some of the furniture. Everything's like bright pastels, and then everything is fizzy. So we're like really leaning into like 70s disco fizzy vibes. House carbonated stuff. Got a list of like French 75s, some bottle ferments, just kind of like.
How many seats?
80.
That's decent size.
Yeah, it's pretty good size.
With the kitchen as well?
Small kitchen, doing like
nothing
cold
too crazy?
stuff. Yeah.
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 Awesome. When do you think that'll be open?
August 26th.
Next year?
No.
Oh, no, this year. I don't even know what date it is right now.
Yeah, I know. No, it's yeah, it's soon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we were expecting to get keys like pretty soon, and it's already like it's kind of a plug and play.
Okay.
It's ready to go. Just moving in furniture and. Yeah.
Also, you're keeping the big.
Oh
steak
yeah.
Yeah. I'm just gonna play that up.
Yeah, we're leaning into it real
awesome.
hard.
Awesome. 2 weeks, man.
Yeah.
And so Ian's going back to New York to do the line group pop up there.
Yeah.
For how much longer?
I think he gets back on like maybe the 26th.
Oh, you guys are crazy.
Yeah.
And so all fizzy drinks. How big is the menu going to be? Is it going to sort of reflect Trash Tiki obviously there'll be the sustainability element. Will there be any sort of experience from the Lion Group from?
For sure.
Yeah, so that sort of.
I think that's where I learned how to balance drinks, because I mean I had a good working knowledge beforehand, but that was where the bulk of my education came from. So there's always that kind of influence, and they're still family, so there's definitely that in respects to that. There'll definitely be that influence, but it's definitely its own thing. It's really looking at it won't be entirely without citrus or anything like that. We're still going to bring in a small amount, but we were looking at alternative ways to use citrus and get acidity from different elements, and looking at preservation and fermentation and trying to find things that'll last through the winter, and making use of Ontario's very short growing season, which will be a challenge in an EDC place. I'm very aware.
Yeah, especially in that area. Yeah. So, new place. I think I've asked this once or twice, maybe, and I'm not sure if you've ever answered. Is there going to be a Trash Tiki cocktail book?
A couple of people have asked us, but here's the thing, is that we put everything online anyway. Yeah. We don't want to make people pay for a book.
Wow, that's a nice way to look at it.
Yeah.
And because I remember, because you guys were so busy when I was doing the recipes that you sent through me from my book, I actually just Googled, because I knew how much information was online.
Yeah.
And I got all your prep recipes from your website.
Amazing.
For the book. Straight up.
Oh, that's great.
I was because I was watching Facebook, I'm I'm not going to bother them. I'm bothered this bartender who says he's too busy, but I saw him out wakeboarding. But
right, yeah.
165 bartenders, I will never ever write a book like that again.
Yeah, I'm sure that was a huge challenge.
Wrangling cats.
Yeah. Plus, bartenders don't answer their emails a lot.
No, or Facebook messages, or Instagram messages, or anything.
Oh, man.
So now that the new place is opening, in 2 weeks, that's just insane, even by my standards. Is Trash Tiki going to take a bit of a backseat as a resource website more than an active pop-up every 2 weeks sort of thing? Yeah,
I think we're gonna scale back the pop-ups. Also, because we don't want to be flying, and we're very aware of our carbon footprint in that regard. Plus, we've just announced our partnership with Pernod Ricard. So we're gonna help them develop an education module. And because they have a budget behind Pernod Ricard that we don't have, they're going to help us kind of get our education out there. So that'll be a big part of it. But also, we're going to put a lot more effort into our online recipes and trying to get that moving again and getting some traction going for that. And then just not being exhausted doing 2 pop-ups, every couple of weeks. I think that's really important just in terms of our personal wellness as well. But yeah, really scaling that back and really devoting some time and effort into our recipes.
Mm-hmm. And you just got number 19 most influential person in the world?
I think I was 31.
I felt like you were in the top 20 for some reason. I know Ian got he was in the top
6.
10.
Yeah.
I was like, why did they just put them together?
I know. Well, he had the history with the Lion Group.
Yeah, it was I was like, I really hope that Kelsey's in this list still. Yeah. So that could be some issues at home if this doesn't come out this way. So the new place is going to be the game plan for the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, it's going to be going hard. And we're bringing someone over they were really excited about from Sweden named Hampus Thunholm. He's been at Fabican, which is a Michelin-starred place. Yeah.
And then the kings of the short growing seasons and the fermentation and the packaging and keeping potatoes for 8 months and all this sort of crazy stuff.
His prep room is in a cellar in a dugout underneath the ground, and they don't have a delivery of anything other than local fish and game purveyors.
That's crazy. I'm the outreach that I find from Trash Tiki is just I've got young bartenders in Victoria and my right hand girl at Pags. She wanted to do a watermelon cocktail. I was like, cool. But how do you want to do it? And she literally broke down how she was going to use every single piece of the watermelon.
That's amazing.
No piece of the watermelon except for the 2 ends, the very 2 little bits at the very end got she took the rinds and sous vide that into the gin and chopped up half of the watermelon and turned them into ice cubes and then juiced a little bit and add that to the tonic water. Like,
Wow.
used the whole complete thing.
That's
Like,
amazing.
the only thing that got thrown out was the seeds.
Holy.
And I was like, where'd you, like, she was like, oh, I was reading some stuff about Trash Tiki last night. I just really like that movement. I'm just like, okay, cool, I'm good.
That's rad.
And I was
That's
just
so
like,
cool.
it's always nice to see such something that gets so much, and everybody always talks about it and talks about sustainability, and it's such a big buzzword right now. And like, well, what do you do that's sustainable? I don't use plastic straws. I'm like, awesome,
Great.
You're doing a fantastic job. But thank you very much for sitting down with me.
Thank you. This is awesome.
I'm so glad it's my last podcast for the day.
Yeah, I bet.
Talking this long is just exhausting.
Yeah.
Thanks, sweetie.
Yeah, thank you so much. So easy.
Yeah.
Thanks, Post Shifters. I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you're listening, whatever platform you're on, give me a good rating, subscribe, listen along. I'm going to keep going. I really enjoy sitting down with people and learning where they're from, what they did, and how they got to where they were. So if you love it, give me a good 5 stars. If you don't, give me 1 and I'll try harder.